Greetings, it's me, Dr. Paul Gerhardt, and welcome to week 4 of our course. In this session, we're going to continue building on the strategic frameworks we explored last week. Up till now, our focus has been primarily external. We looked at industry forces, competitive environment, and the many factors that shape a firm's position in its marketplace. This week, we shift our attention forward. The topic for this week's analyzing resources and capabilities. The goal is to help you see how organizations develop and sustain a competitive advantage not only by responding to external pressures, but by fully understanding what they already possess inside the firm. In strategy, it's just as important to look within as it is to look outward. The resource-based view of the firm gives us a framework for understanding how internal strengths, knowledge, and systems shape long-term success. This perspective will deepen your understanding of why some companies continue to thrive, even in fast-changing environments. Let's begin by looking at the role of resources and capabilities in strategy formulation. When an industry environment is highly volatile or uncertain, relying on external market analysis alone can be risky. In those cases, internal resources and capabilities provide a more stable foundation for strategy. Resources and capabilities often remain consistent, even when market shifts or technologies change. Think about it this way. A company's external environment can change overnight, but its core knowledge, culture, and skills often take years or even decades to develop. These are the true sources of sustained competitive advantage. They cannot be easily copied or replaced. Firms like Toyota, Apple, and 3M have maintained a competitive advantage for decades, not because of short-term tactics, but because of strong internal systems and accumulated expertise. This internal strength, when used strategically, becomes a source of profitability and long-term differentiation. Next, we'll look at what we mean by resources and capabilities. Resources are the productive assets that a firm owns or controls. Capabilities, on the other hand, are what the firm can do with those resources. You could think of resources as the ingredients and capabilities as the recipe that turns them into something valuable. Resources can be tangible, intangible, or human. Tangible resources include things like buildings, equipment, financial assets, and raw materials. These are usually easy to identify and measure. Intangible resources include brand reputation, company culture, intellectual property, and technology know-how. These are harder to quantify, but they often provide the greatest value. Human resources refers to the skills, experience, and motivation of people within the organization. Employees' ability to communicate, collaborate, and innovate often drives overall capability. The most successful firms are not necessarily the ones most resources, but the ones that know how to use them best. To illustrate this, let's look at some examples from your slides. Honda's timeline shows how the company evolved from many technological research institute into a global powerhouse in multiple industries. What made Honda successful was not just its products, but its ability to transfer knowledge and engineer skills across different product lines. Honda's deep technical capabilities allowed it to apply similar expertise in motorcycles, cars, power equipment, and even jet engines. Similarly, Canon's growth from 1980 to 2000 demonstrates how a company's technical know-how in optics, electronics, and precision mechanics created a platform for innovation. Canon applied its technical base to cameras, copiers, printers, and imaging systems. Their resources were not confined to one market. They could be recombined to create new products and new sources of revenue. Another excellent example is 3M, starting with sandpaper and mining operations. 3M gradually built its vast range of technical capabilities, including material science, microreplication, and adhesives. These capabilities allowed 3M to diversify into healthcare, electronics, consumer products, and energy solutions. What these examples show is that the evolution of capabilities over time is just as important as the accumulation of resources. Strategic managers must understand how capabilities can be stretched, adapted, and applied in new ways to keep the company innovative and profitable. Now let's talk about how resources and capabilities connect to competitive advantage. The link between these concepts is straightforward. Resources and capabilities together create organizational competencies, which in turn lead to a competitive advantage. Tangible assets alone rarely provide lasting success because they can be copied. What matters more is the combination of unique knowledge, culture, and systems that can make it difficult for competitors to imitate. For example, Apple's products are admired worldwide, but the company's true advantage lies in its design culture, its brand loyalty, and its integrated ecosystem of hardware and software. These are not things a competitor can easily purchase or replicate. Similarly, Southwest Airlines' advantage is not only its aircraft or routes, but the culture and operational discipline that allow it to maintain low costs and high employee engagement. The company's internal systems and culture are capabilities that create real value for customers. When we assess resources and capabilities, we must identify which ones truly drive performance and which ones are merely supportive. To make that assessment, we look at how to identify resources and capabilities systematically. One approach is to start from the outside by looking at what the customer values most. We identify key success factors in the industry and then work backwards to determine what internal resources are necessary to meet those expectations. Another approach is to start from the inside. This means examining the organization's activities and processes to uncover what it already does. Michael Porter's value chain is a helpful model for this kind of analysis. In the value chain framework, primary activities include inbound logistics, operations, outbound logistics, marketing and sales, and service. Supporting activities include procurement, technology development, human resource management, and infrastructure. By mapping out these activities, managers can identify where the company creates value and where its unique capabilities may lie. For example, Amazon's logistics and distribution systems are a core capability that differentiates it from competitors. Likewise, Disney's ability to create immersive customer service experiences across its parks, media, and merchandise demonstrates how capabilities can extend through the value chain. Once you have identified resources and capabilities, the next step is appraisal. Grant and Barney both offer frameworks to help us evaluate which resources have the potential to create sustainable competitive advantage. Grant focuses on 3 questions. Do these resources and capabilities establish a competitive advantage? Can they sustain that advantage over time? Can the firm appropriate the returns from those advantages? He assesses these through criteria such as relevance, scarcity, durability, transferability, replicability, and appropriability. J. Barney, on the other hand, uses VRIO framework, which stands for valuable, rare, imitatable, and organized. A resource that meets all four of these conditions can create sustainable competitive advantage. When we compare two models, we see that both emphasizes scarcity and value creation. Grant's framework adds more depth by including factors like durability and the ability of the firm to capture value, which makes it particularly useful for managers analyzing real-world situations. A good example of these ideas in practice can be seen in the case of Goldman Sachs. In 2020, the firm generated over $9 billion in net income, but paid more than $13 billion in employee compensation. This example illustrates a critical concept called appropriability, the question of who captures the returns from a firm's capabilities. If the firm's success depends primarily on the knowledge and expertise of its employees, a significant portion of the profits may go to them rather than shareholders. Understanding appropriability helps firms design incentives and governance structures that align rewards with long-term organizational goals. Now let's look at framework for appraising resources and capabilities in more detail. When we evaluate resources, we plot them according to two dimensions: strategic importance and relative strength. Key strengths are resources that are both strategically important and strong relative to competitors. These should be the foundation of strategy. Key weaknesses are strategically important but relatively weak compared to competitors. Managers must decide whether to invest to improve them or to find alternative approaches. Superfluous strengths are areas where the firm performs well, but they do not have significant strategic importance. These may still offer opportunities for innovation or diversification. Inconsequential weaknesses are unimportant areas of underperformance that may not require attention. By mapping capabilities in this way, leaders can prioritize where they invest, what to protect, and what to outsource. Let's look at a real-world application. Icelandair Group provides a good example for how a company uses internal analysis to guide its strategy. Iceland's small domestic market and geographic isolation present challenges, but Icelandair leveraged its operational service and human resource strengths to create value in other ways. The airline focused on flexible management, superior service, and collaboration with the tourism industry to make Iceland a year-round travel destination. By aligning its strategy with its internal strengths, the company turned potential disadvantages into opportunities. Another example comes from Fujifilm. When traditional photography declined, Fuji used its existing capabilities in coding, nanotechnology, and collagen chemistry to enter new markets such as cosmetic and pharmaceuticals. This demonstrates how understanding internal capabilities allows firms to pivot successfully when external conditions change. Virgin America used its key strengths, superior customer experience, and brand differentiation to focus on long-haul routes, where those qualities mattered most. Harley-Davidson, facing technological weaknesses, chose to emphasize brand heritage and design to appeal to specific customer segments. Each of these examples shows how strategic leaders must align actions with internal realities, not just external trends. Now, let's discuss how to develop strategy implications from your resource and capabilities analysis. Once you've identified key strengths, look for ways to exploit them most effectively. This might involve expanding into markets where those strengths provide maximum impact, replicating them in new locations, and diversifying into relative industries that benefit from the same capabilities. When addressing weaknesses, you can take several approaches. Invest in building those areas over time, outsource them to partners with complementary strengths, partner strategically to fill gaps, target markets where weaknesses have minimal impact on customer value. Managers must also think creatively about how to use superfluous strengths, those that might be seen as less important. Sometimes innovation emerges from areas the company initially overlooked. Let's summarize the process of analyzing resources and capabilities. Step 1. Identify the firm's resources and capabilities. This includes both tangible and intangible assets, as well as the skills and systems that make them work together. Step 2. Appraise these resources based on strategic importance and relative strengths. Determine which ones truly create value and are difficult for competitors to copy. Step 3. Develop strategic implications. Decide how to best use strengths, how to manage weaknesses, and how to protect valuable capabilities from erosion or imitation. The ultimate goal is to translate internal knowledge into a clear and actionable strategy. Firms that understand their own strengths and weaknesses are better positioned to compete in any environment. As you reflect on this week's material, I encourage you to think about your own organization or one that you admire. Ask yourself these questions. What resources make this organization unique? What capabilities have allowed it to grow or adapt over time? Are there hidden strengths or underused capabilities that could be developed into new opportunities? This kind of reflection helps bring theory to life. Remember, strategy is not just about reacting to the environment. It's about proactively building the internal foundation for sustainable success. In closing, I want to emphasize that effective strategic management always integrates both internal and external perspectives. The resource-based view gives us a powerful lens to understand why some firms achieve long-term success, even when others in the same industry struggle. As you study this chapter and complete this week's discussion and assignments, focus on identifying what makes organizations resilient. The companies that thrive are those that know themselves deeply, leveraging their strengths intelligently, and continually invest in developing their capabilities. Thank you so much for taking time to listen to this whole video. I look forward to your reflections in this week's discussion forum. Actually, we don't have a week's discussion forum this week, but I hope that you have a great day, because only you get to choose how you feel about it. I'm Dr. Paul Gerhardt.